victory and the agony of defeat.
Great ball around the corner, Petticini. He beats them all. Junior Polar out wide, bumped away from Trindle. Sharks coming through. None of them can hold him.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure I'm unmuted. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to wherever you're listening or watching this episode of the Tip Sheet Podcast. As always, I'm your host, John, also known as Footy20, here to break down, well, it is quite the mixed slate of games right now. We're in round 19 of the NRL, round 2 of the NRLW, and round 6 of the women's Premiership, and of course the men's Flegg and Cup teams in alignment with the NRL there in round 19 as well. So 5 games on the docket to talk about for the Blue and Gold. A lot of football to digest there, and doing that with me is my good mate Sixties, the big fella Craig. Also here to chat some post-origin takeaways, as well as I guess we can go into the market very quickly because there's been a big breaking story just as we hit live or record on the podcast with the West Tigers and Jarome Luai. So we'll get to all that just in a matter of moment, mate. But how you doing in the meantime? It's been a pretty busy week with Origin yesterday, and obviously the live stream before that.
Yes, it has, John. Caught up with a little bit of training today. Missed the start of the session, but probably caught about half the session today. There was another kids clinic that was on there today, school holiday things. The other day was junior members. Today it looked like it was a just general kids clinic there. You know what? Remarkable job. There were kids just all over 2 of the fields there while the Eels were training on field 3, or the ones just in front of the Centre of Excellence building. The 2 fields in front of the grandstand were occupied by all the kids and their activities. And all the kids were decked out in like a junior Eels jersey that they got given as part of the package to go and do the school holiday clinic there. It looked amazing just seeing all the kids in the blue and gold across the field. So congratulations to everyone involved with organising that. Had a chance to chat to another one of our listeners who came up and said g'day. He's come up and said g'day before, a fellow named Ian. Also known, I don't quite understand the nickname, but he's also his nickname of Cleo as well. But he's a massive Riley Smith fan, and he had a sign that he went down on the field and showed Riley his sign. He calls Riley the engineer because he fixes things, and he's a driving force, and he's a valuable asset to the team. All this was on this sign that he showed him. Riley, of course, loved seeing that support. So shout out to Ian as well. So and thank you for listening to the podcast, Ian, and thanks for coming up and saying g'day. We always appreciate people coming up and saying g'day to us. So, John, that was the rundown really on today, and let's jump into talking about the news that's come out. Let's hit that West Tigers news before we talk about our thoughts on Origin, and then we'll get into all the previews.
Yeah, breaking on a Thursday afternoon. We're recording about 3 o'clock on the 9th of July, and about 20-25 minutes ago, story developed that the West Tigers have given Jarome Luai permission to negotiate with rival clubs for next year. And of course, Luai is going to be joining the PNG Chiefs in 2028, but they're essentially telling him to go take a gap year somewhere else and clear some roster space for him. And there's been a lot of speculation and people arguing for and against about the vibe-killing move that Luai did in signing for the Chiefs and activating that player option that he did earlier in the season. And from that point, the Tigers went from being top 2, top 3 on the ladder with a lot of wins. And again, sort of like you have to look at who they were playing and what was available at the time. Maybe it wasn't as reflective of their true ladder position as it could have been, but there's no doubt that since then, their confidence has gone into the tank, hasn't it? As a team, they're just a shadow of what they once were. Maybe they weren't a top 2, top 3 team in the roster, but now they're looking like genuinely missing the finals again.
it's amazing, isn't it, John, how much the vibe can be impacted by a player signing not just for the next season, but for 2 seasons down the track. And immediately it has an impact on the team. And there's no doubt that there's been an impact that has been felt not only by Jarome Luai in his own personal form, and he's admitted that. That's not speculation. He admitted his form dropped on signing that. And that he worked really hard to try and get it back when he did have a man of the match performance a couple of weeks back. But as you said, they're really in danger of not qualifying for finals football. It remains to be seen whether he can get his form back on track again, whether the Tigers can get their form back on track again. But with so many teams that are pushing for that top 8, and there's not too many points separating a real cluster of teams, they are in danger of dropping back out, and it probably wouldn't surprise their fans were this to happen. John, you said something to me when we were in the green room discussing the Jarome Luai situation, what you said regarding his opinions when it was
Lachlan Galvin on the and look, obviously not the same circumstances, but he was very proud to boast the team first socials there. Now the team want him to take the full haircut, right? Like to get off the books. Is it still team first? The different shades of morality when it comes to the club and players there, of course. Look, it's another reminder about the poisonous pill nature of player options. The Tigers gave Luai 3 years of player options consecutively in his contract, and he leapt on the advantage there and has left them sort of in the lurch, because I don't think they'll bank on him taking up those player options to test the market. But yeah, it's very interesting times. They've just signed Jake Averillo, who is known by trade as a centre of expertise, but the indication was they wanted to play him in the halves. So I guess he's going to be fast-tracked into the halves of Adam Dwahi. I don't know if the Tigers are feeling some it's only the 1 year because of that huge cap expansion coming in 2028, but are the Tigers feeling the pinch on the cap? They've done a lot of re-signings lately. Dream Buller, the May boys. They've done a lot of work there, and also spent for this year, like this season present, they went and got Kai Pearce-Paul and a few other players as well. So I don't know if this is purely speculative. There's no any sort of knowledge there. I don't know if they're feeling a cap pinch, but this is a massive roster disruption. And for a guy that was billed almost ad nauseum as being like the culture builder for the Tigers, like this incredible signing that's going to get into the finals, his legacy as it stands is a bloke that didn't get into the finals and has almost pulled the team apart by leaving it. So still football to play this year. They're in 12th place coming into this round. But on 18 points and chasing 22 points at 8th place of the Rabbitohs, already a pretty big gap there, isn't it? And their for and against is right in the tank as well. It's one of it's not anywhere near the worst, because you've got the Dragons at -239 and our own Eels and Broncos also down in the doldrums there. But the Tigers are in triple digits -4 and against, so they're not making the 4 and 8 in points differential. They've got to win outright.
John, I'm getting a little bit of scramble with your signal, which might indicate me as being the issue
It could be me too, but thankfully on the recording side at least, there's going to be an awkward pause, not any garble. So we'll make it work there. But yeah, look.
But what I will say, John, is that as we also talked about, if I'm Jarome Luai and I'm happy to back myself next year, and I'm sure there'll be an element of pride there in a full season that's the last season at the club, I'd probably be sticking around, getting the money, because it's a significant sized contract, rather than going somewhere for 1 year. I think I'd be sticking, if it's possible. I'm assuming he has a genuinely decent relationship with the players. He does seem to be someone who pulls the team together in terms of their spirit and their.
Luai is a good player, at times a great player, but here's the conundrum now. If you're looking at it from both the West Tigers and Luai's point of view, Luai doesn't need the ring chase, Craig. He won 4 with Penrith.
Yeah.
So if he wants to, he could link back up with Penrith, one last hurrah for the boys next year. All the old boys putting in for one big ditch or pitch at the title. But he doesn't need the ring chase. He's got his future secured at PNG. He has 1.1, 1.2 million reasons to just park his caboose in Leichhardt and say, play me or put me in reserve grade.
Yeah. If I'm him, I'm doing that. So anyway, let's quickly move on because otherwise it becomes the news.
Yeah, news 2.0.
Podcast,
which, hey, we know people love us rambling and talking about football for hours on end, but yeah, let's do a quick recap of Origin 3, Craig. Upset victory for the New South Wales Blues. A rare Suncorp series decided win for them. But it makes it 3 straight games at Suncorp. Is that right now? That they've won in this in game 3 settings? Like I think one of them was a dead rubber, but the other one was the Mitchell Moses series, and then obviously this one here. But Blues winning 30-12. Obviously a big boil over result here. 5 tries to 3, and Nathan Cleary kicking 4 from 4, and the combination of Walker and it was Reece Walsh that did the other kick, 0 from 3 there, and Kyrgios attacking on a penalty goal. Not short on some controversy. There was a Jack Bostock missed knock-on for a Bradman Best try that would have brought the game or kept the game much closer at the 56th minute. But I think it's fair to say that on the totality of that game, Craig, the Blues were a lot better. And I give him his credit. As much as the entire rugby league world, have been critical of Laurie Daly, that might have been his finest hour of coaching and preparation for the Blues, because that felt like the first time in a long time, at least under his tenure, that the Blues were properly prepared for a game, and it really showed. Mitchell Moses handled all the long kicking duties. Nathan Cleary got to play more as a 5/8. They moved the ball really well. They found some great creases to attack. Defensively, they were very stout as well. So, full credit to the entire team. Cleary played probably his best game of Origin in a game where the Blues hadn't, there was that big blowout in Perth where he scored a few tries as well, but this is probably his best game in a competitive game. So, a lot to dissect there. But where do you want to start very quickly?
I think, first of all, commentary on the controversial try. I think it was clearly touched, in my opinion. The overreaction in terms of the Queenslanders talking about just get rid of the bunker, blah, 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 because of the error in that. Have they watched NRL on a weekly basis to see the errors that are usually made by the bunker? That was nothing new. A controversy from a bunker call is nothing new.
Like knock-on tries or no tries that they've gone on a coin flip in the last 3 weeks in the NRL. Were you, like you said, Craig, was anyone surprised that they missed the Jack Bostock finger?
Yeah. No. The thing is, it's a case of you have to be careful. You don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. The bunker should be a very good thing if managed correctly. And by that I mean you probably 95% of the time, 90 to 95% of the time, the calls are correct. When they're not correct, it's hard to see where they got it wrong, because sometimes you can see it on I guess it's one of the most frustrating things overall anyway, that you can clearly see the decision to be made on the first look. The first look that viewers get on a replay, you go, okay, this has happened. And then next thing you're subjected to another minute and a half to 2 minutes of the bunker going over all the different camera angles, and you think, what on earth are they looking at? And then you get those odd calls where all of a sudden they make a decision where you go, what the hell was that? Like, it's clearly this or it's clearly that. And they go, and so but where we have to be careful is there are countless tries in a season where on first look you go, well, that's not a try. And then you see the spectacular put down or the miracle grounding of the ball before the dead ball line or the sideline in goal. And you go, wow, if that might have gone up as no try to the bunker. And then you think, this would be missed. This try would be missed were it not for the bunker or at least
exactly.
the video.
I know there is a push to people get rid of the bunker and just go back to the referee's on-field call. People are forgetting how bad the on-field calls can be too, or perhaps are. It's just that the bunker ones are more glaring because they have all the means the technology at their fingertips to get it right, and they don't. Which again, that is not a problem of the mechanics of the bunker. That is a problem with the personnel of the bunker.
Correct.
Yeah, so the bunker I think is fine.
Go and watch lower grade football. By that I mean New South Wales Cup, Jersey Flegg, New South Wales Women's Premiership. Go and watch that for where there is a lack of technology, and if you end up seeing a replay, which oftentimes is if you've got a bar TV, then that means you're rewinding it yourself to have a look at it rather than a replay coming up. But some of the shockers, and you think to yourself, how is that being missed on a live call? Like, there's times where you go, oh, that's understandable they didn't see that because so many things are happening. But especially with the sideline officials.
In the Jersey Flegg game a couple of weeks ago, there was, at the end of the game against Melbourne, I think it was, there was a battered pass that went like 5 metres forwards off the Melbourne hand that was ruled play on, and they scored. And it's just like, what?
Yeah.
Again, like, these are young referees that are just making mistakes in the pace of the game. And like, that was an egregious one. But imagine that in the NRL, because we've seen stuff like that happen in the NRL where just the referees just don't see something, or they think they saw something and it's wrong. And without the bunker, without the ability to either challenge or review these processes based on whether it's a player-driven challenge or a review for a scoring play, yeah, the game's way worse off. And again, mechanically, the bunker is fine. Conceptually, great. The personnel, though, their inability to get to the right answer, that's the concern. That's where the game needs to improve. And it was also reflected in Origin. Craig, Mitchell Moses, Nathan Cleary. Look, Cleary got all the glory, player of the game, player of the series. And full credit to him, this was by far his best game in Origin. I've already seen some people trying to rewrite history and make it look like or sound like that Cleary's always been great at Origin. I think you should be able to celebrate Cleary having a fantastic game in Origin without having to pollute all the information that shows that he's struggled up until this point, because that's part of the journey. It's part of the story. Anyway, well done to Cleary. I thought he played very well. Was more of a 5'8" than a halfback in this game, Craig. And that was largely due to Mitchell Moses taking full control of the team, at least in the defensive 50. I've seen people giving Moses his dues to this, and I think Chad Townsend mentioned it on socials as well. While Cleary did the pretty stuff, the fancy stuff, the try scoring stuff, the
headline grabbing stuff,
the Blues, they maybe get run over without the boot of Mitchell Moses. That might have been the single most impressive long kicking display that I've seen. I was joking to some people in text last night, Craig, saying that he might get a Callaway TPA because he brought the big bertha. He brought the driver out for this one, and he was cracking that ball 65, 70 metres on the fly in a period where the Maroons were swarming the Blues. The Blues couldn't get outside the 20-metre mark, 30-metre mark. And Moses absolutely bailed out the forwards and the backs there with some monstrous kicks.
John, it has, I guess, a lot of fans maybe in heavy anticipation, should the Eels secure Matt Burton, to have probably the two biggest boots in the NRL playing on either side of the ruck. But that's, of course, the ifs, what's, maybes with that at a club level. But without question, Mitch Moses justified his selection. Whether he gets to play for the Eels this weekend, who knows? Obviously, he wasn't at training today because he's only played last night, so he's not going to be part of the Eels' morning training session. So we don't know. I'm assuming Tedesco's ruled out. He had the Category 1.
Oh, yeah. No, it was Category 2, wasn't it?
Was it?
Yeah, it was Category 2 for Tedesco, but they gave Bostock a Category 1 because that was actually a clever piece of gamesmanship, because instead of waiting the 15 minutes to determine whether he would come back, it let them activate Ethan Strange immediately as the 18th man from the 6-man bench. So Tedesco was somehow ruled a Category 2. I don't know.
Well, who knows what happens then? I was expecting that
he was a foul cat too, and the game's only 3 days after, so surely he doesn't back up. I mean that. Yeah, if we're being fending about player welfare, and we clearly aren't, because, by the way, Jarome and I, how the hell did he stay on the field? We're talking about Mitchell Moses and his long kicking game. hit absolutely flush on the temple of poor Nanai there, who was seeing 6s and 7s and was allowed to stay on the field. Crazy. The independent doctor, what are you doing? I don't know. What are we doing here? Anyway, Blues win 30-12. Laurie Dowie's still going to step down, I believe, Craig. So the Blues will be in pursuit of a new coach. Going to be some fascinating storylines there, because obviously Ivan Curry has been linked to a potential move to that role in 2028 and beyond. But is it going to be a caretaker coach? Are they going to go land someone for a few years and then tell Ivan to wait? I don't know. But the Blues, big upset victory. And I'll tell you what, as a certified Blues doubter for this game, Craig, based on everything we'd seen in the first two games, obviously nice to get the win. You know what's even funnier, though, is the rank entitlement you're seeing out of the Queensland side of the ledger now. Jeez, they didn't like that. I don't know. There's a lot of entitlement sort of leaking through, it feels like, and some less than happy Queenslanders trying to stir up some tussles online, it looks like.
Have you seen the meme for the Cameron Smith crisps?
Yeah. Yes, I have.
Extra salty?
Extra salty and vinegar, yeah. Yes. He was not a happy man.
John, quick question for you. Was it a case of New South Wales really lifting their game, Queensland being well off theirs, or a combination of both?
Oh, it's definitely a combination of both, Craig. Again, Queensland had all running early on. They spent a lot of energy trying to pin the Blues deep, and it was to great effect if it wasn't for Mitchell Moses' boot. Like, that really turned the tide for the Blues. But then you go beyond that. They ended up completing at 70% completion rate, Craig, but it felt like every time they were even threatening to build the slightest hint of momentum, cold drop. They dropped a lot of ball at untimely moments. And then defensively, they obviously had some lapses there. The Blues getting a lot of offloads away. And then, just the Blues, they took their moments, I guess, for the better part, lack of a better word, with outside of young Jack dropping that early try assist from Moses and Best down the left edge. They pretty much iced all their chances. And look, I think their selection play up trumps too, Bradman Best. Although there's always concerns about his availability, that is a boy built for Origin, isn't it? Like, he plays big games at Origin.
Always has been, John. Always has been. Absolute
brick shit house of a centre, built like a fridge, and plays hard. Jack Bostock, I thought he was good in debut despite missing that try. You know, he put his hand up for a lot of hard work. Crichton, good. Nwanganita-Waze, fine. And look, the other key one too, I mean, Liam Martin was great in the edge as well, being an absolute menace. But the other key one too is that I know they started Yo at lock, Craig, but he played the majority of his minutes. I was about to say snaps, NFL style. He played a lot of his minutes at prop, and that allowed Cam Murray to play lock forward, and that configuration was great for the Blues. It was great back in 2024 when Moses helped take them to victory. Again, it's not a coincidence that they started to dominate when they put their best players in either the not necessarily the right positions with the jerseys on their back, because Moses had the 6 and he was playing 7, and Cleary vice versa, and then Yo with the 13 and Murray with the 14. But they put their best players in the right spots, and they were allowed to flourish. And I think that's a huge part of the reason why the Blues got there. On top of the Maroons also playing some bad football.
Cobbo was error-riddled. I
mean, the effort was good from Cobbo, but in the first two games, he everything sort of stuck. Last night, not so much.
No, not so much at all. Anyway, John, let's now move on to our preview, because we've got 5 Eels games to get through, and we will try to be as succinct as possible. I know we're renowned for being able to ramble on quite a bit, but we'll try and be as succinct as possible. So we kick things off with the Jersey Flegg clash between the Eels and the Roosters that's taking place on Sunday.
Yeah, doubleheader out of Wentworth Park.
Wentworth Park. Yeah, so that's not Wentworthville. No. Let's make it clear. That's the dog.
I made
that
track. Mistake once in my lifetime, Craig. Once in my lifetime, when I didn't read the park properly.
Yeah, it's not. It's the old dog track in Sydney, and I think the last time I went there was a couple of years ago to watch lower grades, and unfortunately there was an antiques fair that was on in the grandstand, underneath the grandstand.
No.
So it meant that all the parking was taken up. And that was actually a game that I took my mum to because she loved going to see the lower grade games. And I had to leave her with the parking attendant at the car park and then try to find parking, which ended up being in this muddy paddock around the other side of the ground. But fortunately did get parking, but maybe have a look. My suggestion to people seeing as though it's a Sunday is have a look and make sure there's not an antiques fair on at the same time, because if there is, you might have to do your best with parking elsewhere. So anyway, we've got this clash going on. It's the Eels got back into the winners list last week.
Yeah, snapped the 4-game losing streak with an 18-12 victory over the Manly Warringah Seagulls out of Kellyville. And now, like you said, Craig, out to Wentworth Park, 12:30pm kickoff on a Sunday, with the Eels meeting the Roosters in a 7v12. Eels in 7th position on the ladder, trying to stay in touch with that top 5. Just one win behind now. Who is ahead of them on the ladder?
The Sharks.
It is the Sharks.
So the Sharks on 26, Rabbitohs 25 in 6th place. Eels on 24 in 7th place. Even not too far behind the Tigers in 4th place, who are on 27 points. So it's plenty of chances still to qualify for the top 5.
You win and you take care of everything, honestly, at this point still.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, you win the games, you'll qualify now.
Yeah, there's no concerns about mathematical probability right now. Win and you're in as it stands. There's obviously some margin for error pending other results, but just got to keep on rebuilding momentum. And like I said, they've arrested a month-long slide with losses against the Knights, Bulldogs, Raiders and Storm, with a 6-point win against the Seagulls, which could have been a lot more if it wasn't for Lincoln Fletcher being put on ice at halftime, I think, Craig. I think that was a pretty significant difference in the two teams. And further to that, though, the concern is no Lincoln Fletcher this week because he has been promoted to the New South Wales Cup. So can the Eels win without him? And to do that, they look like this. Nathan Howlett's your fullback. You've got Larima Rokasuka and Drizzle Tawala on the wings. Dakota Kakoi and Harley Walker in the centres. Cam Bambut stays in the halves, but he'll partner Cabe Muljali this week, who returns after missing last week because of Fletcher's return from injury. In the front row, Marcus Offenoa getting a start this week, promoted from the bench because Jordan Miller has at least a 1-game suspension. I'm not sure what the actual duration is, Craig, but I think there was a late hit off the ball against Manly that warranted a 1-game sit-down at least. But he's in the front row with Salmaki, Jack Hudson, a dummy half. In the back row, it's Trace Beattie, Chris Petrus, and Jackson Koiner. We go to the bench where it's Lockie Koinakis, Callum McMenemy, Sterling Faamui, and Elijah Shane Tapa'u. Noah Parker in the 20th jersey, but the 18th man is the reserve there. And yeah, the Roosters, they're missing a ton of players in their list. I'm not sure if that's going to be young Cup guys getting bumped back down because AJ in our live stream was saying that there's going to be some changes at the Cup level, I think, with the Origin guys coming back into the in the NRL team, which then might lead to some Flegg guys coming back down to Cup. I'm not really sure what the full setup is there. But yeah, Eels looking to get an important back-to-back victory this week, Craig, and they really need it if they're going to keep in touch with Cronulla and the West Tigers above them on the ladder.
Yeah, and we've got former Eel Dom Farrugia playing in the centres. He was a winger with the Eels, playing centre for the Roosters against the Eels. I caught up with Dom the other week at the Eels Jersey Flegg clash. He was there to catch up with some of his former Eels teammates. He's still a local out around this way. So we always wish Dom the best. Not when he's playing Parramatta, but we'll wish Dom the best. He's a great young fella. Anyway, John, last week I regarded the match as one that I wasn't going to tip on. No, I was going to tip on that. I was confident with the ins that happened last week with
Fletcher being huge factors. Mm-hmm.
So it was the week before that I didn't want to tip on because I wanted to wait and see. Last week I thought they're going to have a bounce back. They're going to win. They towed up Manly the first time they played them. They were something like 18-4 up at halftime, something like that.
18-4, yeah.
In complete control, let Manly into the contest, unfortunately, from their point of view. But Fortunately, they held on for the win. It wasn't a pretty result by any stretch of the imagination, John. It was a pretty average second half that the Eels played. However, once you start to get the wins, that confidence comes back a little bit. It's not as if the players that are in this week with Lincoln Fletcher being elevated to reserves. You've got Cade Majali. Cade was the halfback when the Eels were going really great guns at the start of the season. So it's not as if he can't step up with Lincoln Fletcher being elevated. We've still got some great strike players that are there. I'd like to think that the Eels should be able to get it done against, what would you say, the 12th placed?
Yeah.
Roosters.
Yeah, Roosters with 4 wins and 10 losses this season in the Flegg. They're struggling, which I know that they're aggressively pushing some of the young players through. We've seen when we get to the NRL list, there's a lot of young players in the periphery of or on the bench in the periphery of the team there. So they're really aggressively cycling those very talented SG ball players we've seen the last couple of years through the grades.
Yeah, so the fact that the Roosters are struggling doesn't mean that they are struggling when it comes to young players. No. It's just that they've aggressively pushed them further up, which means that they've gone into their depth charts for the Jersey Flegg. And likewise, I think the Eels just lost a bit of their mojo for all those weeks. It wasn't as if they were devoid of talented players, but with a bit of disruption to the team lists and almost being in a losing habit, we really needed that win last week. So I'll tip a win this week. Maybe not quite as confidently as I did last week because I felt Manly were just an ordinary team.
No Fletcher, no Miller, they are big outs. They were absolute difference makers for the Blue and Gold in their home win against the Seagulls. In saying that, confidence, it's a funny thing, isn't it? Was one win enough to spark the Eels back into the sort of good veins of form? And I'll argue again, Craig, we mentioned it in our review podcast, that maybe not going on and crushing Manly might have been a better outcome for the Eels. And maybe it's a bit of cope, I don't know. But they needed to fight in the second half. They had to earn the win, at least defensively. And I think that was maybe an important aspect of that victory. So hopefully they can bring it to the table this week against the Tricolours. By the way, Eels did sweep the Roosters in 2025, both times scoring 40 or 40 plus, 40-14 and 44-36. That was a high scoring game there in June and July in those last 2 games. So there's some good head-to-head form there for the Eels. And on the back of that, I'll tip a close win. I can't see the Eels running away for a huge win here. But I think that, again, the back line's looking nice now. Howard, Rokasuka, Kikoi, Walker, Taula. I think that's probably one of the better configurations I've had this year. Probably a chance for Cam Bamblett to have a big game this week, with Lincoln Fletcher earning a call-up to the New South Wales Cup. How far off is Cam now? If he can put together a big game this week, does that put him into consideration for a call-up? We'll wait and see. The forward pack is starting to solidify again, Craig. Offeno's been good off the bench. Hope he can have a good game starting here. Salmaki starting to fit into the club a bit more now after being here for a few weeks. And the back row was very good against Manly. I thought Chris Petrus was excellent. A lot of aggression, like controlled aggression in that game. So, some players that should be hungry for higher honours come the end of the season in Petrus, Coiner, and whatnot.
Yes. John, let's move on now to the New South Wales Women's Premiership match. Also a Sunday game, except this time it's against the Steelers, and it's down at Wynn Stadium, Wollongong, kicking off at 11:45 a.m. So a morning kickoff for the women's reserve grade, the New South Wales Women's Premiership. We'll call it reserve grade. And they're on a bit of a, maybe not so much a winning streak, but they're definitely looking quite strong the start of this season. 3 wins, 1 loss from the 4 starts. And if you can take us through the Eels lineup.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Eels up against the Steelers, 11:45 p.m. kickoff at Wynn Stadium on Sunday. So you can catch this one on Bar TV. With the Eels starting at fullback, and we mentioned it on Tuesday night, but there were some concerns about Ella Carla maybe getting dinged up last week, and thankfully She's been named to play at fullback this week. On the wings, young Ere Sevilla and Freedom Crichton Rapati. Crichton Rapati obviously a specialist on that right sideline, Craig, but Sevilla getting her lessons and experience on the wing in this grade, despite being a specialist fullback, showing some positional flexibility, which is obviously very good. In the centres, you've got Jasmine Morrissey and Kiana Takarangi. Tess Staines and Aliyah Sufan are your 5'8" and halfback respectively. In the front row, Jess Kennedy, Ava Jones and Rashay Farmer-Suli. Back row, Fontaine Tafunga, Tia Matthews. And named to play, but I'm not expecting her to, is Kylia Gray, because she is scheduled to make her NRLW debut. But we have to wait and see what happens there. But to the interchange now, you've got Kate Fallon, probably the utility back option there, I would guess, with Alana O'Loughlin and Josie Lenars and Laura Kame or Kame on the interchange for that 4-player bench. Got 3 reserves for the Eels, Tegan Long, Mitzi Cairns and Leonia Vey. And should Kylia Gray be an absentee from this team, as you would expect, given that she is scheduled to play first grade, I would imagine that Cairns or Vey probably comes onto the bench. And I would say that Jess Kennedy probably goes to lock and Alana O'Loughlin starts at prop, if I had to guess.
That seems logical, John. This particular team is testimony to the Eels pathways. So many of the young girls that have come up through pathways. I think likely also is the Illawarra Steelers team, and they're undefeated at the moment. So this is actually a big game for the Eels, because if they can get victory over the Steelers, who I think sitting in second place.
3 wins, 1 loss, it says, for the Steelers here.
Does it?
Yeah, Newcastle, unless the ladder's wrong, Newcastle's the only undefeated team here, it looks like. So they are in second place.
So my apologies. The Central Coast Roosters are the other one that I think they...
Yeah, they've got 2 draws, 2 wins. Yeah.
2 draws, yeah.
That's an interesting form.
Yeah, so that's what's thrown me when I've had a look at the third place teams.
Undefeated team in third place, exactly. So you naturally think that there's an undefeated team in second place.
Yeah, so the Eels are on equal points with the Steelers, but in differential, they're a bit. In fact, there's a whole cluster of teams that are on 6 points. So there's 5 teams.
Yeah. This is last year. This is last year again. This is just like last year repeating.
Yeah.
There's going to be some team missing out that doesn't deserve to miss out come the end of the season because of the top 5 nature or top 4 nature of the finals. This one it might be.
The top 5. So with the Steelers effectively on differential sitting in second place, it is, as I said, a big game for the Eels. It gives them that opportunity to nudge ahead of a team like the Steelers.
Big one.
And any time you're coming up against those sides that you run the risk of finishing equal on points and then you're worried about differential, you got to take that.
Yep.
You've got to take that. You've got to give yourself that advantage of a win in the head-to-head. So, as I said, I really like the balance that's there in this Eels team. There's so many of those young players that have come through, but they've just got just enough balance to give them a little bit of experience there as well. Arguably, the Central Coast team maybe did a number through the forwards on them. We did have a number of players out that week because there was an NRLW trial. So some of the players that are listed in this team were involved in the NRLW trial. But that was the only blemish on the season was that one. And maybe it also came down to the fact that the Eels didn't take their chances early on in that game. Apart from that, they've looked in control in each of their games. So you'd like to think that's going to be the case again this week, John. I really like the skills in this team. Like they're a credit. The ones that have come through the pathways are a genuine credit to the coaching that's occurred during that time in the Eels pathways. And the players who bring that experience, it's evident that they are experienced. So when you're talking about your Kia Takarangi, and she's been around the traps for a while. Even if she doesn't have a high number of NRLW appearances, she's played internationals as well, and she's just obviously comes from the Takarangi family, so just that heavy involvement in rugby league as a family with her brother Brad and her father Luai Takarangi, who also played for the Eels. So you've got the three family members. I think they were the first time that you had a father and daughter who had all played for the same club. So, it's a good amount of experience. You got Tess Staines in there, who's played NRLW. Yep. She was with the Knights, was it the last?
Knights and Tigers as well, I believe. Her last two stops.
Right. Yeah, and before that was Parramatta, wasn't it?
Yes, with our inaugural squad, I believe. She's been around the traps, brings some experience there. Likewise, I mean, Jess Kennedy's certainly not an old head in terms of NRLW, but she's been in the setup for a couple of seasons now and is a good hand in the forward pack. So they've got pardon me as I talk away from the microphone. They've got a good setup here with enough of the experienced hands and heads in the team in the right places. A lot of young talent there too, both internally and externally that they've recruited, like Ella Carlisle's an external recruit that's been a really good get there. So it's a very well balanced squad. I think you look at this one, Craig, and their ladder positions and form line speak to this being a coin flip. It's going to be a close game, and whenever it's a coin flip, obviously you're going to back your team to get the right result here. But this is a big one, like you said. This is essentially a 4-point game, isn't it? Early in the season, a chance to put a buffer between you and another early contender, a chance to knock some serious points differential back into your two lines there, with the Steelers at +68 and you at +30. If you win by 8 points, that's a 16-point swing in differential this week for the two teams. So there's a lot to be had in this one. Just got to hope that the Eels can build. And I thought they were really, really good last week. They didn't dominate the Tigers on the scoreboard, but in complete control there. I really liked what Ava Jones did at dummy half last week, Craig. I think there was a lot of pressure on her taking the majority of minutes at 9 with no Bowie Marchong as another young foil to her. But tasked with a heavier workload, I thought she was good. Freedom Crichton Rapati, another young star. I mean, Cully is the first one to get the call up this year in the NRLW. The way she's going, it's hard to not see Freedom also being a factor in the NRLW at some point this year. Obviously still got to get there, but she's off to a great start. A lot of great young talent in this team. And I just hope they can continue to build with a good win here against the Steelers.
I guess when does Freedom turn 18?
I mean,
that's
if you're in favour club, you just get dispensation, right? You don't need Joey Manu, Justice Swali. Maybe it wasn't Manu, maybe it was just Swali. He got the easy dispensation out of the NRL. If you're good enough, you're old enough. It's the old adage, right? And it depends on who's asking, I guess.
Exactly true. So, John, I think we're both going to nominate the Eels to take the victory in that one, which leads us to the New South Wales Cup, the Reggies, in the men's, taking on the Roosters again, as they were in Jersey Flegg at Wentworth Park, 2:45 p.m. on Sunday. I'll get you to run through the Eels team there.
Yeah, the second part of that doubleheader out in the city, with the Eels coming off a crucial, much-needed win against the Manly Seagulls, wiped the floor with their sister club there. And to be fair, they kind of had to, because Manly were on a then 13, now 14-game losing streak after the loss to Parramatta. But I thought the Eels were very good, and a chance now to build against the Tricolours. This is 12 v 9 Eels and 12 Roosters v 9. I think a top 8 finish mathematically possible for this group, Craig, but rather improbable at this stage. So they're focusing on wins and development. But we have to wait and see how that happens this week. It's still not out of it. But at fullback, you got Brad Avery. On the wings, Devontae Vivella and Jordan Hill. Siamani Leilua and Jake Tungor in the centres. Tungor playing despite having a hip injury on the report and to be confirmed on a return date. So I don't know what's happening there. I don't know if you've got any insight, Craig, if he's healthy. He's been named, so I guess he's playing.
I think from memory he was training today.
Yeah. So I would assume that Jake, I mean, if he's not playing, he's one of the most unlucky players this year for the Eels, and the year that's had a lot of unlucky players. 2 high shots roll him out for ages, and then a hip injury would be absolutely brutal. But be good to see him on the park if that's the case. In the halves, though, this is the most exciting part. Lorenzo Talataina reuniting with his running mate from the SG Ball and the Harold Matthews, and even maybe fractionally for the Jersey Flegg, I guess. But they didn't get a lot of time together in the Flegg if they did, because Lincoln Fletcher making his cup debut in the 7. We're all worried after he didn't turn back out in the Flegg after half-time last week. Like, did he get hurt? What happened? It looks like he was put on ice for a cup debut. So that's very, very exciting. And it'll be good to see how Lorenzo and Lincoln recombine or work together with their first combination in, God, it's, got to be 12 months now, hasn't it? Because Lorenzo's been up in cup and Lincoln's been in the ball. And then very, very fractionally in the Flegg. In the front row, another young player, Ryder Taulagi. He's in the engine room with Max Tupou, who had probably his best game of the season with a big effort against the Seagulls. Riley Smith, also a season best in cup with a dynamic, dominant performance against Manly. In the back row, it's all young players, Tyrese Lakini, Josiah Funarayuta, and Saxon Pryke. I thought Lakini very solid, while JFI, not too similar to Tupou and Riley, I thought that might have been a season best game for him, Craig, against the Seagulls. I thought he was putting in big efforts on both sides of the ball. We go to the bench, where Cruz Natili Schmidt is your dummy half utility. Damascus Nemia called back into the team on the bench this week, alongside a pair of young middles in Zach Visconti and Max Fumiano Popo. No reserves listed, but given that this game takes place on the Sunday and the NRL Eels play on the Saturday night, it's pretty safe to say that there's probably going to be 2 of the 6-man optional bench dropping back here. In recent weeks, it's been Joash Papali and Charlie Geimer, and probably safe to say that if everything goes according to script in terms of no injuries or crazy foul play situations, that the Eels will probably be doing the same in round 19.
Yeah, it would seem that way, John. Last week, let's face it, Manly were awful.
They were not good. They were not good. Yeah.
And by the same token, the Eels, that was their second solid performance in a row. The previous week, although they came up short, it was much improved against top of the ladder, or near top of the ladder, Newcastle Knights. So it was a game that had showed some encouragement leading into that clash with Manly. The Eels were able to go on with the job to get their first win in a long time and add to the misery of Manly. What is it, 14 straight now for Manly?
14
something
straight,
like that.
And the full clean sweep of the Seagulls by the Eels in the men's grades on the weekend, which is always a great weekend, isn't it? Yes. It
is, John. I think there was a little doubt that Riley Smith was best on field in that clash. You also had people rating Lorenzo Talataina's performance quite high.
Pair of try assists and line break assists of both those players. Heavily involved in all the good stuff the Eels were doing. I think Riley also kicked a cracking 40-20 at one point in the game as well. So there was great involvements from those 2 spine players.
John, the interesting thing is that if you look at the Eels back line, you will see why there is an issue around depth for the full-time squad, because these players, a lot of these players in the New South Wales Cup are not full-time players. So you've got Brad Avery, not full-time. Devontae Vivella, not full-time. Simiani Luai, not full-time. Jordan Hill, not full-time. So 4 of the 5 outside back.
And there is some nuance there too, isn't there, Craig? Because Vivella, he's had a bit of a breakout year for us as a Flegg early graduate into Cup. He's been quite a revelation. You know, I wouldn't say he's kicking down the doors for an immediate first grade call-up, but he's been very productive in Cup. And Siamani Leilua has been a nice pickup from Canberra as a Flegg signing that's also been thrust into senior football a little bit earlier than we would have hoped. But like you said, there's 5 players there, and only Jake Tungwall has a senior contract, and even then, Tungwall's very much back end of the top 30 player right now.
And he's also been out injured for most of the year.
Had an absolutely diabolical run of injuries. Like I said, 2 high shots, 1 for a back concussion, 1 for a broken jaw. ruling him out for damn near half the season.
Yeah. Then when we're talking about the rest of the Eels team, I think the entire bench is are part-time footballers as well. So it's and you also have Max Tupou, who is not a full-time footballer also. So it's now, can we say the same about the Roosters? Well, I don't know a huge amount about their team.
Their
the players
team's also
named.
very much subject to change. They're missing three players in their starting team, and I fully expect there to be some pre-game tinkerings based on who's available from the NRL game. But yeah, they're like
we do know some names there from their excelling in the pathways. Toby Rodwell is a familiar name there. Jackson Allen off the interchange. He was
very good dummy
carving
half.
them dummy half, especially at the Flegg level and even last year. So he's someone that's the Eels will have to watch when he comes on. This was a really hard one to gauge, Sean. I'm probably inclined to go back to my fullback position, which is sit and watch this without making a tip, because I just don't know how the Eels are going to be impacted with players coming back that aren't used or get very few minutes in the NRL clash. So they might end up making
the safe bet there would
changes.
be Brad Avery getting bumped to the 18th man position for Josh to take over at fullback, and then Charlie Guymer probably going to lock forward, and then I'd say Saxon Pryke going to the bench or pushing to the front row and putting Max Tupou to the bench, one of those two outcomes, and then I would guess Damascus Nemio dropping out of the team if that's the case.
Yeah, possibly, but I'm gonna look on for this. I'd like to think that the Eels can carry on the form from last week.
I'm a little bit more bullish. I just feel like there's some good momentum there. Obviously, the big question mark will be how does Lincoln handle his first taste of full-on senior football. I think there's a lot to play for both him and Lorenzo for the remainder of his season. I don't know how much further they can progress, because Jason Rolls has been very careful to stress that he's not going to be rushing juniors. So I don't know what that means for maybe a cup of coffee in the NRL for one or both of them later in the season. But they're still building for the preseason at the very least, aren't they, Craig? So there's a lot of young players in this team that got a lot to play for. If there is a player playing for a shot at NRL this season, or players, I'd probably say Ryder Tuangi and Tyrese Lakini, with the Eels being quite skinny at middle forward right now. We've got Tony Mattelli back on the bench, but after him, it's Saxon Pryke down in this grade, I guess. So there's plenty to play for.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that gives them enough to fire up for back-to-back wins and, back good performances.
Yes, which now takes us to the double header that's taking place at Accor. Oh, is it Accor? No, it's
Win. Just Win, baby.
Win Stadium. Yep. So it's in both the NRL. The NRLW. That was the main game. The curtain raiser was the New South Wales Women's Premiership.
Correct.
So we've already previewed the New South Wales Women's Premiership. So now we've got the NRLW, the main game in that double header at Win. The Eels, John, very disappointing first up performance. The coach has kept the faith with the side. So can you just run through the Eels NRLW team?
Yeah, so Dragons v Eels in round 2. You got our former Origin teammates turned our rival fullbacks this week in Tegan Berry and Abby Church. For the Dragons, they got Maria Paseka and Jamie Millard on the wings, Martha Mattelli and Fleur Ginn for the good guys, or good gals as it were this week. Shanae Sazolka and Keely Brown running the centres for the Red V, whereas the Eels have Rory Owen and Lindsay Tui as their young centre combination there. In the halves, Talia Filmiano and Casey Ray for the Dragons. Cassie Toihiku and Rachel Pearson, obviously the Eels preferred 6 and 7 in the playmaking stakes there. In the front row, in the forwards for the Blue and Gold, it's Elsie Albert, Ruben Cherrington, and Riverley Arlaw, given the chance to start this week because of the Boss Kapua suspension. On the other side of the ledger, it is Madison Mulhall, former Eel Ruby Jean Kennard Ellis, and then another former Eel, although going back a little bit for this one, in Brooke Anderson. In the back rows, Chloe Jackson and Mahalia Murphy will run the edges for the Blue and Gold, Kennedy Cherrington locking out the scrum. On the opposite side, it's Montana Clifford and Ellie Costa out wide, and Hannah Southwell in the 13 for the Red V. On the benches, Tori Shipton, Trinity Tawaniai, Amelia Huakau, and Zoe Hopkins for the Dragons. For the Eels, got Tanika Todd Hunter, Tess McWilliams, Rosemary Beckett, and Collier Gray. Extended rosters, Dragons going deep into their extended roster. 5 players there: O'Brien, Ingram, McKenzie, Sautia, and Ekapati. And for the Eels, Zoe Faye, Fontaine Tafua, Jasmine Morrissey, and Kiana Takarangi. A lot of backs there, and obviously Fontaine as the forward option should she be needed. And again, I look at that team list, Craig, and the thing that really jumps out to me is that double utility on the bench. And I think either Todd Hunter or Beckett are completely fine and worthy selections in their own right. I just, maybe it's the rugby league conservative in me, even though I do have some. I like to position myself as a progressive and like going for the cutting edge in some things. But when it comes to the bench, it is hard to go wrong or hard to go past the one utility, 3 forward bench configuration in a neutral matchup. And right now, I'm not sure how we can get the best out of our bench with both Todd Hunter and Beckett there. Although maybe Steve Rejoins has got something up his sleeve this week and he'll be cooking something against the Dragons.
Yeah, John, there was no doubt at all that the Eels didn't turn up in that first week, that first round in the first half. And they found their mojo in the second half. Rory Owen is such a strike weapon.
Yeah.
And she emphasised that. But we've got to set her up. We've got to lay that platform through the middle. And I think that's something that the Eels just didn't manage to do last week. It seemed like not enough physicality, and maybe the shifts were coming or were attempted too quickly. We didn't ask enough questions in that first half. We started asking questions in the second half, and then the points came. But, of course, it was far too late. Far too late. And it's a case of this week, we have to be so much better in so many areas. So on both sides of the game, be it attack and defence, we've got to be that much better. We leaked points far too easily.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's probably
the left edge, sort of close to ruck, is where just the Tigers ran rampant. I think Mahalia Murphy and sort of the players peripheral to her getting caught out a few times, and you can't have that. You can't have that lack of physicality on your goal line.
Exactly, and just to run through some key stats, because we didn't really get the chance to do so, but it's interesting, isn't it, that the 2 young gun centres dominated the run meters. Rory Owen, 146 run meters, and Lindsay Tui, 115 run meters, and no one else came anywhere near them. Just not anywhere near them at all. So what also, and I just want to double check what she ended up with, but Kennedy Cherrington, 40 tackles. I think she was already up in the high 20s at half time, but 40 tackles there. Chloe Jackson and Ruben Cherrington also plenty of work there. 26 for Chloe, 32 for Ruben Cherrington, 25 for Riverley Arlaw last week. So when all was said and done, it was a case of there were too many tackles that were missed by too many players. Let me just double check what that team missed tackle count was last week. The possession, we only had 44% possession, and we ended up completing at 77% across the game. But when it came to effective tackles, 80.12% effective tackle rate against the Tigers, 87.37. Missed tackles, 44 to the Eels, 22 to the Tigers. Ineffective, 24 to the Eels, 15 to the Tigers. So, and when you consider that our penalty count was 10-4 to us, and that sort of it almost seems incongruous with the level of possession, doesn't it? Like, to end up with such a penalty count, that just tells you what how bad the errors were for the Eels and how poorly we defended to let in so many points
and not finding
as well.
touch. Just all the little things too, not finding touch off a penalty kick and whatnot. Like, geez, talk about piling the pressure upon yourself.
That led directly to a try, didn't it?
It did. Yeah.
So, all in all, the Eels need to be much better. By the same token, the St George Dragons didn't set any field alight themselves last week. They had a bad loss to the West Tigers in the trial. They're probably tipped to be one of the bottom teams in the comp this year. This is the one that the Eels have to get done. They just have to. They've got to start better.
I went to it almost like you're closing the book on the season, doesn't it? Like, you have to then go on a huge run. You mentioned that we'll hand it an ideal start to the season with the Tigers and the Dragons in terms of the scheduling. So you got to come out of this week 1-1. Like, it's a non-negotiable. You got to bounce back.
Yeah. They if they were to, as you suggest, John, it would be diabolical if they were to drop this, because you can't start 0-2 and have the 0-2 being West Tigers and St George. You just can't. So I'm going to tip the Eels to bounce back. Let's call it an aberration last week against West Tigers. I don't think they gave the Tigers enough respect. That's just my gut feel about the game. I think there were too many virtually shortcuts that were taken. I believe Steve Georgalis said in the presser that, or someone alluded to the fact that Steve let them know at halftime what he thought of the first half performance. Yeah. And he had to. Yeah. He had to. It was unacceptable.
Look, and I know we sound like we're scathing the girls, but they'd be under no illusions that they let themselves down in this game. The expectations are high for them this year.
John, they were what they produced bore no resemblance to their form in the trial against the Bulldogs. Now, I know it's a trial, but you still talk about what qualities the team is going to demonstrate, and you can see some of that in the trial. You can see what the KPIs are going to be for the season. You mightn't see the full exploration of what because the team is probably going to keep some plays up their sleeve from they're not going to show their hand completely in a trial, but you're still going to get a sense of the team identity and the team ethos. And what was delivered in round one was not indicative of how that team sees themselves and sees what their style of play is going to be. I have to go for the Eels to turn around quickly this week. Yourself, John?
Yeah, like I said, it's a non-negotiable. You'll come out of this week 1-1, and maybe 1-1 with a solid victory as well. You got to, put some form on the board and quick. So Eels to knock the Dragons over here. It's kind of hard to get a margin. I can feel for a margin because the two, there were three quote unquote big scores in round one. Two of them from teams we expected. The Broncos absolutely annihilating the Cowboys, and the Roosters, who they put away. Who they play? I had the tab up just then, and they closed it. But the other team that put one over 30 was the Warriors against the Bulldogs, and they won comfortably as well. Round one of the NRLW was the Roosters against the Titans, 34-10. So yeah, very comfortable win. All the other games were in the sort of the teens or 20s. So if the Eels are the win and win well, I'd probably pick them to be in the 20-point range, like on their side of the scoreboard. So like a 24-10 win maybe. I will take a plus 14 point differential gain after what we lost against the Tigers. Good win in that vein. best on field. First try scorer, I'll go for another young player in Riverley Arlaw, getting a chance to start this week. Maybe just a bit of a power play from close range. And then, best on field. Best on field. Again, if you're talking about identity, KPIs, and setting the tone, it's got to be one of the middles. We've got to be physical. We've got to be dominant. Probably going to need a big game from either LC Albert or Kennedy Charrington. Like one of the two seasoned hands in the middle. Need one of those two to really dominate this game.
John, I think it'll be about a 10-point margin myself. I'll go for a 20-10 result to the Eels. A couple of goals from the Eels, a couple of tries not converted for the Eels, giving the 20 points. We'll go with that being 4 tries, 2 goals for the 20 points, and 10 to the Roosters. The first try scorer, I'll stick with who we saw last week shine as a try scorer and go for Rory Owen there. Like you, I think a lot of what the Eels produce, I think in their mindset as much as their play, has to come from the players in the middle. And you spoke about Kennedy Charrington. I'm going to nominate Kennedy Charrington as well as the likely best on field. So that now takes us, John, to the NRL.
Mm-hmm.
The Eels attempting to get back-to-back wins against the Roosters at
Old Boys Day for the Tricolours.
the
Daniel Tupou's 300th game. This is the easiest one the Eels are ever going to win, mate. Just, no doubt. Put your money on it. Put the house on it. But yeah, it's a 7:35 p.m. kickoff.
Allianz Stadium.
Yeah, because
track of the sponsor name.
Yeah, Allianz used to be what is now a core, right? They used to sponsor the Olympic Stadium, but it's now a core, and Allianz is now the football stadium. Where's the common sense, guys? Like, you can't do that to fans. Our memories are bad enough as it is, but Allianz is formerly the SFS that was rebuilt a couple of years back. So this is in the primetime slot on Saturday. Eels and Roosters meeting. Obviously, the Roosters doing pretty good this year. Where have they got? Where does the match center say? They're in third place coming into this game. But they're on a 2-game winning streak with victories over the Broncos and the Sharks. Did get hammered by the Dolphins prior to that. Eels, look, when you look at the most recent results, 2 wins from the last 3 outings, it's as good as the Roosters, mate. You just got to squint a little bit and not look past that. Don't get the focus out too wide. But for these two teams coming into this game, obviously differing landing positions, differing outlooks on the season. But the Eels, like you said, chance to upset the apple cart here and knock the Roosters over. And the two teams look like this. We mentioned earlier in the podcast, but James Tedesco, their captain and fullback, got to be under some serious doubt to play this game after succumbing to a Category 2 concussion just on the shades of halftime there in the Origin 3 decider up at Suncorp. So he is scheduled to be opposite of Azara Yongi, but I would imagine that if he wasn't, they got Rex Braffingwaith, the young back on the bench, Tommy Talau's there as well, Cody Ramsey in the extended roster, another option that could play fullback, probably the safest option there. So that's a wait and see. But on the wings, the milestone man himself, former Eels prospect Daniel Tupou, 300 games in the NRL, the second. He's on track to be the second highest scorer of all time, I guess. I don't think he's still caught Ken Irvine, but he's on track and obviously having an incredible career and another big one there with the 300. And opposite of him is Mark Nwanga-Nitawaze. Rounding out the Roosters' backline is Billy Smith and Robert Toya. For the Eels, they're I was going to say mid-season, but it was in the preseason. But the outstanding preseason pickup of Brian Kelly on the right wing. He's opposite of Josh Adokar. The Fox running with young Araz Nava down the left edge, while Jordan Samrani working with BK on the right. In the halves, DCE, Daly Cherry Evans, and Hugo Savala in the halves as named. When I did my team list Tuesday, Sam Walker wasn't on the team list, Craig, but he is on the updated version as part of a 5-man super extended reserves list for the Tricolours. So he could be subject to coming back into this game. Did have a concussion check of his own in Origin, but he did pass that one and got back onto the field. So if he's fit, I would assume he backs up here and bumps Savala back to the bench, I would guess. But DCE and Savala as named for the Roosters, up against Ronnie Volkman and Mitchell Moses, who looked to get through Origin unscathed. I saw some ice packs on him post-game, but nothing that we should be too worried about. But if he's not good to go, obviously Jonah Pezzett will cover for the Eels. In the front row, Nafahu White and Spencer Leniu are the starting bookends for the Tricolours. Connor Watson at dummy half. In the back row, they've got Celestia Fiketti, Sua Wong, and Victor Radley. And for the Eels, it's Sam Tuavaiti named to start, which is a great thing to see. I know he started the last couple of games, but he's earned his stripes for the official start now, Craig, which is obviously a big milestone for him. He'll be in the front row of Talon Da Silva and Jack Williams. In the back row, unchanged for the Eels, Kelma Tuolangi, Kitione Katonga, and Jack de Melon. The two interchange squads, Benai Iowelu, is the dummy half utility for the Tricolours. Taylor Lasalu, Egan Butcher, Delasal Va'a, Rex Brassingwaith, and Tommy Talau, the six-man optional bench for the Tricolours. For the Eels, it's Dylan Walker, Tony Mattielli, Tiankin Brown, Harrison Edwards, Joash Papali, and Chowie Geimer. Then the extended rosters, nice and easy for the Eels, Saxon Pryke, Riley Smith, and Jonah Pezzett. But for the Roosters, Toby Rodwell, Reece Foley, Cody Ramsey, Reece Robson, and Sam Walker. So Robson and Walker, the two to watch in that extended squad there, Craig. Obviously playing for Origin for the Blues and Queenslanders for Robson and Walker respectively. And I think they got through unscathed. And you'd imagine, like the Roosters, they'd be confident winning this game, but they have the luxury of resting their Origin stars. I'm not sure. Eels of a last start upset win against Manly probably puts the Roosters on notice. And I don't think they'd be that lax as to rest players that could play or could back up this week.
I reckon if they've got a couple of players that are banged up, they might give them a rest. I think that they may be that confident against the Eels of getting the job done that there might be one or two that are given the rest. I think they need it at this time of year. The Roosters would be playing the long game. This is just my opinion. I reckon the Roosters are playing the long game when it comes to finals. They don't want to overly exert some of the players, so they want them to be as fresh as possible coming into the back end of the season. So it wouldn't surprise me because they've got so many players that are backing up. It's a lot to have backing up from an Origin game. Really, it's I can't see any way that Tedesco plays. I think as well that the halfback has to be in huge doubt.
Yeah, look, Walker, he passed his concussion check, but he was in the wars on Wednesday night.
Yeah. And outside of those two, maybe there might be a third player that may not play now.
Robson,
whether it's
maybe?
someone like Robson, whether it's I think probably Robson would be that's a heavy workload to go back to back on. If you're a dummy half, the workload that you do is pretty high. So maybe it's him, but they've had the luxury of naming him on that extended reserves list to still be able to name Connor Watson as dummy half and the young bloke
Iowelu.
I was trying to work out what the pronunciation of that name was, but he's done it really well when he's been called up. He looks a genuine player of the future. John, can the Eels back up? Can we get 2 weeks of, and I'm not going to talk about effort because I keep saying effort is non-negotiable. What I'm interested in is resilience and tenacity. And we saw that the Eels had that in spades last week. Execution wasn't 100%, far from it. We shot ourselves in the foot a number of times, but we kept bringing a level of intensity, especially right to the 80th minute, that we've probably lacked in this earlier in this season. So if we can bring that same amount of intensity, that same energy, I think we can take the game to the Roosters. Do we have enough strike power to win? I would have said that the Roosters and Manly were on a par when it came to their capacity to do some damage in this premiership. Manly certainly did look the shadow of themselves against us. Will the Roosters have the same fall off because of the workload from Origin? Maybe. That's what I'm looking at in tipping an Eels win, because I think there's confidence that the Eels would have gained from that win. I liked what was happening from a defence perspective, because when you think about last week, there was plenty of work that the Eels had to do in their own red zone. And then when the game got into the latter stages, and for a large period of the time, we were only 2 points in front. And we were bringing the pain to Manly in defence, especially that there was like an extended period where we kept them really well pinned in their own red zone, trying to get out of there. And it was almost like we just didn't let them get a look in. I know they nearly scored a long-distance try, but that aside, there was a lot of encouraging signs from the Eels, and it's a very similar team that's been named this week. Probably the missing Sean Russell is significant. We have to rely on the fact that Raz Nanva did a very good job when he was called up before, and that he'll be able to repeat that effort. So it's a big ask. Who would he be lining up against at centre, John, for the Roosters?
Robert Toy will be their right centre, I believe.
Okay. So it does mean that we've got quite a bit of inexperience at centre in Sam Rani and Nanva. Sam Rani, of course, really in his first, you'd have to say this is his first full season of NRL. He got that taste last year, did quite well, but he's literally been a mainstay this season. So, yeah, I don't know. Is it a heart and head decision, John?
Yeah,
is it a heart and head?
I think there's definitely an element there, because you just look at the raw ladder position and it is 3v14 or whatever. Yeah, 3v14. But last week the Eels showed that when things align and they hit not just their effort areas but certain execution levels and principles, that they can be disruptive and they can shake up another. Look, I'll use contender in a loose vein here, because Manly, I'm not sure if they've got the chops to be a proper contender, but they're a contender the way the Roosters are contenders. Like, there's talent in the roster, things align in the finals, they can win the 3 or 4 games in a row needed to get you there on the biggest Sunday of the year. But, yeah, I don't know. Look, no Russell, so you're minus a 3/4 there, but you're plus a half. Mitchell Moses is scheduled to play this game, Craig. So that's a big in. But my other concern is obviously Mitch's form has fluctuated a bit this year, but has the team fluctuated with him where when he's back, you fall into bad habits, and when he's out, you lift because you know he's not there? That's going to be the challenge for the team this week, is that Moses is coming back into this team on the back of a huge series win against the Blues. He's going to be riding an emotional high. He's going to be ready to, to throw down. You got to think this week. Can the rest of the boys go with him? And if they can, I could see this one being really close. I don't know about getting the win, but like a super competitive loss maybe. But you put yourself in that super competitive loss bracket, then suddenly an avenue to victory will manifest or emerge. So that's where I'm at for the Eels. I think the Roosters are probably deserved favourites, like pretty solidly deserved favourites. But the Eels, they can be disruptors.
Yes. Well, John, I'm gonna tip. I'm going to tip with the heart.
Of course,
this week.
You got to. You're obliged. Where this is a blue and gold podcast. What are we doing?
So, last week was relatively low scoring. We had a run of relatively low scoring games.
Knocking on the wood here, there's been a quiet interpretation change. 100%. The 6 agains are starting to evaporate. You're seeing more general play flowing and all penalties being called. And I dare say the product's been better for it, but that's just between me, you, and everyone that listens to the podcast.
I would agree there, John, and I hope that the Eels coaches have a look at what was done to them last week with the kickoff. Manly going for that little short one, unexpected. I've kept banging on about the variation in kickoffs. Don't just go that long kick. Don't just go that short, high contested kickoff. They're standard. They're the sort of stuff that the teams prepare for. Kick to the spaces, whether it be a short little grubber kick, whether it be drilled at a sideline. There's plenty of spaces there. Teams don't practice for all the possibilities. So they mainly practice for two. Their long kickoff, which is fielded and handed off to the prop who charges it back, or the short kickoff where it's all players attempting to get a tap back or to climb above the others for the catch. Everything else is left aside. So maybe one of the coaches will do that, but I'm going to go for the Eels 28-18, a 10-point margin. I'll really push the heart this time. Best on field, Mitch Moses comes back from Origin and has an absolute blinder. And if he doesn't play, I'll go Talon De Silva to have a big game. And the first try scorer, let's go for a player who had a really high quality, maybe best of the season game for himself last week, Isaiah Yongi to be first try scorer.
Nice.
Over to you, mate.
Yeah, I just realised I was reflecting on my round 18 predictions, and I got some of the equation right. I think I said 23-22, Jonah Pezzett Golden Point field goal. I got the 23 points in the Jonah Pezzett field goal right. Now, they wasn't in Golden Point, and the Seagulls only scored 14, but I think I'll stay with the odd number of points. Parramatta Eels 11-point win here, so they'll win. You know what? Well, it's 23 points again, 23-12. One of the more interesting scorelines you'll see out there. Mitchell Moses field goal, first try scorer. Brian Kelly, best on field. Moses is obviously a great shout there. So I'll let you have Mitch. I'll let you have Talon. I will go with, God, if I'm letting you have Mitch and Talon, who am I going with? Best on field. Let's go. I mean, I'll take the other one that you mentioned but didn't put in the best on field, but in the try scoring brackets, I'll take Isaiah Yongi. I think that he's coming off perhaps a career best all-round game. This might be a chance for him to flex the offensive chops. Last week was all about what he saved on the score sheet. This week about what he can add on as a creator and a finisher.
Yes. So, John, that just about brings this massive preview podcast.
It's not even an hour and a half. What are you talking about? Easy. But to be fair, State of Origin review, the Jarome Luai news into 5 full previews of the grades. Well, that's actually not the worst time management we've ever had. I'm going to be, a little bit of a pat in the back there because we could be far worse, to be honest.
So thank you to everyone who has watched or listened to this. We do appreciate your ongoing support for the Cumberland Throw. Stand by for the instant reaction that will come just after full time in the match against the Roosters. There's also the latest TCT Supercoach column that's come out today by Adrian, although when you're seeing this, maybe it's going to be not the same day. We'll see. Depends when John gets this preview podcast up. But as of Thursday, the latest Supercoach column is up there. We will have the NRLW and NRL previews landing, and we'll do our best this weekend with lower grade live blogs. We'll see how we go time-wise on Sunday. Apart from that, John, it only leaves me with a couple of things to say. As usual, go you mighty Eels, para proud.